everyone. So, it is finally time to talk about the Tennolive, Tennocon whole deal 2025 breakdown more in depth than I did in my short video I did after being at the event proper and live streaming the thing all day. Got a short little video kind of wrapping up my initial thoughts, but this is going to be a bit more on the formal side, let's say. For that, we do have the other panels kind of section here to go over first, and then into everything that I actually saw that's new at Tennolive and its implications for the rest of this year and next year going forward. So there's going to be a lot to unpack here, starting with Soulframe. So first and foremost, anyone who's ever signed up on soulframe.com, you should have access to the game now. It's opened up to everybody who has ever signed up for the game, which means if you're watching this video, the likelihood that you did that at some point is pretty good, so you should be able to get in. Also, anyone who signed up over the weekend can also, they do have access to this. Otherwise, it is still in its kind of closed state. Otherwise, the demo basically went over the new Bromia stuff, which is going to be the P11 big quest that we're getting with like new enemies, new tile set, kind of seemingly redoing some of the map. And of course, we're going to be getting the moat system, I believe, in P11 as well, finally, which should be a pretty big update overall for Soulframe. Likely because of the moat system, the biggest one that it has gotten of any of the Preludes updates, I would imagine. With that, I do want to note real quickly, of course, I do have the Soulframe Scholar channel, which was started for Soulframe. And, you know, if you want to check in more on the current state of Soulframe, what's good, and like what farms there are and such like that, I will be doing more videos over on that channel, so go check that out. Now, moving on. There's just a couple extra little notes here, just a couple small things. The main stuff is from the narrative panel, which is a big one here, and then shout outs to Kat on the writing team for talking about this on the narrative panel, because I think it is really, really important. There is now a dev lore Bible, basically, where things are actually being written down and accounted for long term, which is great. This is a thing that Warframe, a lot of games just never have this because they don't last as long as a game like Warframe has. And, you can't blame DE 12 years ago for not having one right off the rip, considering the way that Warframe started. But coming back to it and getting all the things in Warframe's story in order for the time going forward is huge and much appreciated. So I just wanted to call that out specifically as a very good thing. Otherwise, on the narrative panel, the big reveal was that there are 3 new proto-frames, and they are all going to have full Kims with romance. That is going to be Wisp and Harrow, who are Marie and Leon, respectively. And we don't technically know the other proto-frame, but it's probably the new Devil Warframe, if I had to hazard a guess at it, though they did not say yes specifically that it would be the Devil Warframe proto. Otherwise, there's just a kind of side note that the next Conquera skin that we're going to be getting, the next charity skin that we're going to be getting, is going to be the Zephyr Conquera, which is a conversion of the old Zephyr Deluxe concept, but this is just going to be something that everyone's going to get, which is very cool. I think it looks nice. It's kind of like a very sleek Zephyr, and she doesn't have a skin that looks that way, so seems neat. Moving on, though, we have the big proper Tennolive presentation. First and foremost, the next heirloom is live. Valkyr heirloom is up. Of course, I have a recent video that I just put out for Valkyr, so if you want an updated build for her, that's there for you. Otherwise, Caliban Prime Access is going to be our upcoming PA with a unique prime weapon this time, similar to the Euphona that we got back in the day. This is the Vidaria, which is a sniper rifle. It is a sentient sniper rifle prime, and sniper rifles are in a weird way. We'll see what the unique functionality of this is, but right now, with most things having, if it has a lot of health, it has a lot of health, and it's attenuated, that makes sniper rifles very undesirable, and just in general, a lot of our more rapid-fire weapons have plenty of damage to take things down, so it puts sniper rifles in kind of a weird space currently. Other than that, we have the Venato Prime, which is a scythe. Scythes are quite good, so I imagine this will at least be serviceable when we get it, and the unique shape will please many people. Otherwise, speaking of melee weapons, Dog Days will be returning soon. I believe that's August 4th, but don't quote me on that one. Most of us don't care about Dog Days anyway. That's returning with a melee weapon, so you'll have a pool noodle to hit enemies with. It might make that, event less of a slog to farm. Hopefully that's the case. And then otherwise, we have a little bit, just a small little bitty update. Warframe on Android continues to be in development. Also, having talked to a number of the different devs and stuff, And also just kind of knowing this in general anyway. For anyone that's like wondering, oh, why is Android for like Android Warframe taking so long to come out? The reason is because if you look at the iPhone version, there's only a couple of iPhones. Really, there's only a couple of iPhones, and they put Warframe onto that. When you look at the Android side of things, there's about 100 quadrillion fucking Android devices, and making it work on as many as possible is a really monumentally large task as compared to the couple of iPhones that there are. Even if that doesn't sound super different because it's all phones, right? It is much, much more challenging. But hopefully, we see more development there soon. I definitely do not envy DE having to try and make Warframe work on an Android phone with how many variants there are. Speaking of making Warframe work, though, we have the Starfinder crossover. Now, if you're like me and you have no idea what Starfinder is, it's what they call Space Pathfinder, which, fair enough. I mean, like, if you called it Pathfinder, but it was just space themed, I would have got there, but it's Starfinder, which is just fine. I am someone who definitely appreciates TTRPG, like a tabletop RPG experience, but I have never played any of them. But I'm definitely interested in this, especially with the cover art here being like, of course, R2 proto frames with much more like, modern day looking protos and such. I don't know if there will be any kind of lore drop here to explain that or give us some other detailing going forward, perhaps. But I'm definitely interested in potentially doing something with this. I don't know if that's something that people would like to see, but definitely seems cool. I've heard good things about Pathfinder overall, so this is probably going to be fun for the people that enjoy the tabletop stuff. Otherwise, we have information on our unannounced fall update, which is shaping up to be immediately a banger, especially if you are a new player. First and foremost, we have Lavos Deluxe, which is visually not here, but it will be in 1 second. There we go. Obviously, no one would ever forget about Lavos. So Lavos is getting his deluxe skin, which, I mean, looks good. I've always liked how Lavos looks. His regular form was interesting, and his prime looks really great. I will say that I do think that this deluxe looks really, really similar to his prime, at least from the concepting level. We'll see if it looks much different in-game in the end, but he will be getting a deluxe skin. In addition to that, in this unannounced fall update, we're also getting an Oberon rework, and boy howdy does Oberon definitely need it. We're getting more details on this on the next dev stream, information from Pablo, which is all well and good. Like, Oberon rework, whatever can be provided is what Oberon needs. There are, Oberon's probably of the Warframes that need to be reworked, I would say, and there's, not that many if you look at my tier list. Oberon's probably the one that is kind of like the least core stuff about him needs to be changed. Like, the core concept and thing that Oberon wants to accomplish doesn't need to change in order for Oberon to be good. So I think that just a bunch of improvements to his ability to do the thing he wants to do are all he's really going to need in order to be a good Warframe, which is good. We'll have to see how that shakes out, though, on the next dev stream. Otherwise, though, this update is going to be bringing in a new, probably short, I would imagine, cinematic quest, though, which is the new quest, The Teacher. So this is a Teshin-led modding guide quest that is going to be right after Vor's Prize. So this is right off the rip. You're going to do Vor's Prize, then pretty much immediately go into The Teacher quest, which is going to not only introduce Teshin so that he doesn't just appear out of the ether whenever you get to the second dream, and will, place him in a probably like the most needed location possible for more just like, kind of breadcrumbing and leading new players to things. I do wonder how this is going to be structured. They did kind of say that this is in cooperation with like another company that's like helping them make this, which I think is like super reasonable and probably a really good sign overall. Mostly because, if you were, for example, Pablo has been looking at and playing Warframe for at least 10 years. I think that Pablo was around even probably sooner than that. It might actually be 11 or 12 that he's been at development with Warframe. And in that position, you can't look at Warframe with truly new eyes, but outsourcing that to another company that has not played Warframe or can find a bunch of people that have not played Warframe to analyze what needs to be taught and how to teach it is definitely, I think, a good sign for what this quest is actually going to offer to new players in terms of getting them ready to just regularly mod items in the game. I do think that this is probably not going to be particularly deep, as there are some other core problems currently with modding, where there's a bunch of mods that just simply don't do what they say. But for simple stuff like put the elemental on the weapon, it does this and things like that. I think this will be more than able to get people to a competent level with early game modding, which is great. Also, this update will also contain our 60-second Warframe, and our only hint is that he is a fun guy, which leads me to believe that he is either a clown or a mushroom of some description. And that both of those are fun. Like, whatever we end up with, he'll be a fun guy. So, you know, we'll see what that is. That's probably another next dev stream kind of thing, perhaps, where we'll see like Oberon rework and possibly the actual 60-second Warframe. And that's all very interesting. But, of course, the piece de resistance for this presentation is the big update for this year, the old piece. Now, this is a big thing that they are dropping. There is going to be a whole lot of questions to ask and a whole lot of questions that I think that this will have to answer just purely by existing. For that, what this is it is actually multiple parts. So the Devil's Triad, which are the 2 new protos and probably the Devil Frame as our 3rd proto, are going to be one part of the old piece, and that is the new Devil Warframe's name is Uriel, the Heretic of Zata, and you can see some concept art and stuff here. This part, the Devil's Triad, is an Entrati lore quest that we will have access to, and then the old piece proper is a flashback memory dive quest for the Operator that is like supported by the Lotus and Lloyd. Also, we know that this is like basically occurring alongside the Drifter going to 1999. So this is what the Operator is doing at the same time. And it's very likely that Lotus Eaters will lead directly into either 1999 or the old piece. And that'll be kind of the split point where we very clearly in that quest get to start making decisions for both characters alongside one another. And then they will go their separate ways and do their own things. With that, there's been a lot of talk about how, like, this is an eternalism, this is that, this is, like, all these different, like, theories that actually recently got disproven to not be possible within, like, the current lore of the game. With Isleweaver, we got some, like, basically straight confirmations that the scene on the Zaramon of the, like, handshake between the Drifter and the Operator and Wally, all that stuff basically removed all eternalism from those two except for them. So the Operator and the Drifter are the only 2 operators that exist that are the same entity. So this is not a different timeline or like an alternate character. It is a flashback for the Operator because Nessie and the Man on the Wall confirmed that that is what that scene did actually mean. So it can't be another eternalism of us because there's only the 2. So knowing that, this is basically the Operator during the time of the Old War alongside Adis, which is a like evolved sentient, and they are in a time of peace, as you might have guessed by the name of the update. There are also interestingly like enemy DACs on this, which are they're called Separatists in the demo, which is very interesting, and that'll be curious how they use that because of course we know from the War Within that the DACs are like loyal to the Kuva and loyal to the Orokin for that reason. So it might mean that there is like an enemy Orokin faction and an allied Orokin faction for this time, which will be interesting to see. But then beyond that, part of what we're getting with this update is an expansion to our focus schools. So this is going to give us focus ultimates, which we see as a conjuring a gigantic sword to blow up a siege weapon like during this quest. And presumably all of the different focus schools will have a different ultimate, though we don't know that for sure. And they have said in some interviews since then that there is a new focus school, and they're also updating the old focus schools. So you'll have a 6th focus school in addition to the current 5 that we already have, which is great. And all of this is going to be actually leading us towards what we got revealed as next year's potentially major update that we'd probably get at the end of the year, as I imagine there will be some additional stuff to do once we get the Devil's Triad and the old piece itself, which is current day Tau is the goal for next year of like getting us to whatever that is going to be. Obviously, whatever that is going to be, I think is going to be informed quite drastically by the Devil's Triad and the old piece. So there is lots to do and talk about. Now, obviously, this is going to be a huge lore drop, and it is going to cause me to reopen this. For those of you that are unfamiliar, I did my huge timeline video, and it has been a minute since it's been updated. This was basically around the Zaramon, whenever I last did this. And since then, we had Duviri happen and 1999 happen, and we're getting close to the old piece, which of course would slot in somewhere in this really short old war part that we didn't have a lot of detail about. But even just from what we saw in this preview, we can start making some conclusions about like what actually happened in the old war, and especially some other interview pieces that we've gotten from some of the devs. There's a lot that we can do on this timeline. I've actually already started editing a few things in here and spacing some things out to appropriately make room for what all is going to need to be talked about. So the lore tree ever grows. But yeah, that's Tennolive. I'm very, very excited for what we're going to be seeing going forward. The end of year update is going to be the old piece. I think is going to be crazy because obviously they showed us a big exciting presentation, and there's like a lot of questions to ask and answer. But I think that the big important takeaway for me from that kind of like what they showed of the quest is that I don't think that we saw the most important parts of the old piece by like a long shot. I think that we saw a lot of cool stuff, and like a lot of like the setup for it, but I really feel like that quest is going to be much more involved than it maybe even lets on, from what we saw. But yeah, super excited for it. It seems like it's going to be a great time. The new focus schools obviously probably are going to like shake things up in terms of what focus schools we're commonly using. New Devil Frame looks cool. Having the Devil's Triad and like the old piece main quest come at the same time is going to be, seemingly a ton to do. But because of that, it does seem like the other big update that we're going to be getting this year, the unannounced fall update, might have to save pace for a while, which for a very likely huge December update once again, probably first week of December is what it has been for a while. So that's what I would expect to see the old piece. But yeah, that's going to do it for this video though. Hopefully you have enjoyed it. And yeah, I'm going to be working on the timeline and stuff once again. Also, there is a new free-to-play coming up. I'm trying to have that start probably in first week of August is the plan for the free-to-play through to start. So if you want to see the new progression before we get the teacher, which I think will slot very easily into that new player progression, that is what I'm going to be doing because they changed that new player progression a whole lot, and I got to get some experience with it. But yeah, that's going to do it for the video. Hopefully you've enjoyed it, and I'll see you tomorrow. Goodbye. So ends today's video. Thanks so much to all of the patrons for supporting not only this channel, but also the new Soulframe Scholar channel. It is much appreciated as that channel gets started. And thanks very much to our $10 patrons, Athean, Ith, Halburn Drake, Alex Parnham, Arbiter Daydream, Baby Hoot, Arcus, Nuven, Automatic, Brutus Salazar, Canolathra, Bob World, Colleen Smith, Dylan Dworsky, Azrain, James Hawthorne, GC4 Science, Josh, Lord Ian, Luzanth, Mike Easman, Mikkel, Mitchta, Nerve, Ruby, S267, Sanyu, Cezon, Sharp247, The Coupon of Death, Waifu Wars, Waldetto1, Seraphir, and Zero Weebs Plan, and of course all of the $5 and $2 patrons as well. Your support is very much appreciated, and I'll see you in the next one.